trying to answer the question, is your digital garden still bearing fruit? You know, there's a lot of talk out there of how much traffic people are losing to their websites. Or maybe you're experiencing that there's a drop in traffic to websites, or maybe you even experience that you're losing customers recently. Is all this because SEO is dead? Is it because AI is taking over? And we want to try to solve these problems by looking at our digital garden. And by the digital garden, I want to pull a metaphor here as if our website is a garden. And you know, your website is a garden. It's got all kinds of wonderful plants in it. These plants are the products, the services that you have to offer. And, you know, you want these plants to not just be beautiful and attractive, you want them to produce fruit. You know, you can have a great, beautiful garden, but if the garden isn't producing food, you're going to be hungry. And in the same way, your website is not just about being beautiful and attractive and for everybody to look at and see. You need it to produce fruitful customers and sales. And so that's what we're trying to focus on. How do we get not just a beautiful website, not just a beautiful website for people to look at, but something that actually produces fruit, that we can generate income, that we can generate business, that we can grow our business. That's what we're trying to aim for, even if it seems a little harder than it used to be. Now, my wife has a garden at the local greenway, and so we've been playing it all summer, and she's finally harvesting, you know, the final crop these last couple of weeks. But one of the things, if you've ever grown vegetables, is you know that before there can be a vegetable, or actually more biologically correct, before you can have a fruit, you have to have a flower. And the same thing is true with your website. You can have a very attractive plant, but if you're going to get fruit out of it, you need to have a flower, like a blog post, like a page that talks about what you have to offer, content that's engaging. That's kind of the flowers that can produce the fruit that is the business of your website. And so before we have any fruit, we have to have a flower, because these flowers, they attract pollinators. Pollinators come from all over. It may be, it can be a butterfly, it can be an ant. It's going to pollinate the flower and produce the fruit. And unless I've really like overstretched my metaphor here, these pollinators are the web crawlers, right? So Google, in order for Google to show you in the search results, first it has to send a crawler, or a pollinator, we might say, if we're pulling our metaphor here, to look at your blog post, your wonderful flowers, and say, this is something of value that I potentially could serve to my customers. They visit your flowers in your garden and they bloom. These crawlers, these pollinators, they gather the data in order to potentially send the fruitful visitors to your site. Now, crawlers make the fruit possible, right? But just because a web crawler like a Googlebot comes to your website doesn't mean it is going to produce fruit. And this is where we just have to pause for a moment. Today we're going to talk a lot about web crawlers as the way that your website is discovered. But we also need to remember that the web crawler is one piece of this puzzle. You can't just expect pollinators to come to your website or to your garden and produce fruit. Your pollinators, you need water, you need fertilizer to make your garden grow. And the same thing's true about your website. Just because the Googlebot comes to your website doesn't mean you're gonna get any visitors. You have more work to do. You have to produce new and interesting content. You have to establish yourself as an authority. You have to have a good, readable website by the Google crawler. So even though today we're going to be talking about the crawlers that come to your website, that are the first step to having a fruitful website, let's remember in the back of our mind, that's just the first step. There's a lot more you need for your garden, your website to grow. So, there we go. Where am I? Oh, there we go. Okay. So here we have our pollinators. They are all flittering around the flowers of our garden, pollinating the fruits, understanding our garden so that the visitors can come and see our site and maybe make a purchase, maybe hire us for a service we have to offer. But OMG, there's 2 new pollinators at the bottom of this page. These little spiders. They're a little scary, aren't they? They're new. They're strange. We're used to bees and butterflies, and suddenly these new crawlers. Well, in the metaphor we're trying to pull, this is kind of like having the new AI crawlers come to our website. And unfortunately, some people, okay, let me just back up and say for a moment that in order, just as for Google to index our website in order to serve it to its potential customers, the crawler has to visit from Google first. So is true with like ChatGPT. The ChatGPT bot is crawling the web, trying to read it, trying to understand it so it can add your website's information to its index in order to recommend you to the people using it. It works the same way. Claude has a bot or 3. Perplexity has 2 bots. These bots are out crawling the web, and not to just forget, like Bing has a bot of its own, right? Going and crawling and looking at your web pages in order to determine whether or not they're going to serve it to its users. Well, some people are overreacting when it comes to these AI bots. They hear that, oh no, these AI bots are coming to your site and maybe you should turn them off. So they're maybe taking a little bit more proactive steps to prevent the AI bots from coming to your website. We're learning things like some CDNs like Cloudflare. When you set up Cloudflare, by default, are blocking AI bots from coming to your website. We're learning that some web hosts, because these AI bots are pretty resource intensive, some web hosts are preventing AI bots from coming to your website. Well, it might sound like that's a good idea, but when you're killing off the pollinators of your garden, bad things are going to happen. You're not going to be able to produce fruit. Now, there may be some circumstances where you might want to block an AI bot, and that might be a circumstance like if you're selling ads on your website, or maybe you've got a recipe blog and you don't want the AI bots to steal your recipes. And so there may be a good reason in those circumstances to block AI bots. However, if you do take that pretty radical step, you better have a really good marketing plan to make up for the lost traffic that you're going to have, because you're not going to get traffic from the AI bots if you block AI bots from getting them. And anybody who's ever used the WordPress website and checked the box that says discourage search engines from indexing the site knows exactly what we're talking about. You're just doing the same thing by blocking AI bots that checkbox does for Google bots. So the implications are the same. You will get no traffic. And without the traffic, you might have to reconsider your entire marketing strategy. So, oh, I skipped back. So there's a new thing that we have to do when it comes to doing website maintenance, especially maintaining a website that's trying to accomplish a goal like build a business, is we need to keep track of what's going on. We need to watch things like, are the pollinators coming to our site? We need to ensure that these bots are coming and looking at the different pages of our website. There was recently a big lawsuit, I don't know if you heard this, between Reddit and Perplexity, because the Perplexity bot was forbidden from crawling Reddit. However, it crawled Reddit anyway and used Reddit to develop its AI systems, its index. So the other side of this is to make sure that the bots that you don't want to visit are actually not able or not currently visiting. So this is something that you're going to need to start paying attention to in order to consider AI as part of your marketing strategy. And there's all kinds of ways to keep track of the pollinators visiting your garden, the web crawlers visiting your website. The gold standard is always a server log. Your web host has a log of everybody, every bot, every user agent that visits your website. If you have access to that, that's a really valuable tool. Unfortunately, most web hosts don't make it accessible to most website owners. And so then we have to resort to other things. Now, Google Webmaster Tools is a wonderful free tool that will allow you to do that for how Google interprets your website. And that will include the Google AI bots that feed into things like Gemini, AI Mode, AI Overviews. So if you want to keep track of the Google bots coming to your site, Google Webmaster Tools is the best way to do it. Don't neglect Bing Webmaster Tools too, right? Remember, Microsoft, I mean, just today, ChatGPT announced that they're going to start becoming a for-profit company, and the biggest owner in that is Microsoft. So ChatGPT has a big relationship with Microsoft and Microsoft search engines, Bing, so we should probably be paying attention to how the Bing bot interacts with our websites, because that's probably going to be a piece of the pie. But that's only for those two websites. We don't have data from ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity to see how their tools are interacting with our website. And that's why we had built the crawler plugin for WordPress, crawler record plugin for WordPress. And there's the link right there. This is keeping track of how these crawlers, not just the AI bots, but the Google bots and the Bing bots, even DuckDuckGo, and keeps track of certain bots that are coming to your web pages, the ones the last time they came, and which web pages of yours did they come to. This is really helpful for WordPress because most WordPress hosts do not allow access to server logs, so you'd be running blind when it comes to looking at when the crawl bots from the different AI tools come to your site, and that's the reason why that it would be a helpful plugin for you to consider. But once we have a record of the pollinators, of the crawlers from the different tools coming to our site, we're going to want to make sure we attract more of them. One of the interesting things I've seen while I've been running the crawler record plugin on my websites for the last few months is how infrequently they actually come to some of my sites. The most popular sites, they come more often. The sites that are like test sites and stuff like that, they don't visit very often. That makes perfect sense. But what is the things that attract these pollinators? Well, things like having a good quality website that's easy to read and fast. The fact is that the new crawlers from the AI systems are far less sophisticated than Google's crawler. Google's crawler runs on Chromium, which is a very stripped down version of the Chrome browser. And so it can do things and view parts of websites that an old bot can't, an old Google bot can't do. And frankly, a lot of the new search engine, new AI bots can't do either. So having a fast crawlable website is going to help everybody. And so that making sure your technical SEO is really good so these AI bots can read your site. You want to obviously do good best SEO practice, good content that's quality, that's written by you, is always going to be valuable to the bots and to the people that you go. But one of the things we hear a lot about lately is the temptation to write AI content and publish it on our websites. And if human is the only thing that you're worried about, that's probably okay. However, AI bots don't want to read AI generated content to add to their AI index to answer questions. So if you want to be reached by AI mode from Google or Claude, then don't use AI on your website for content. As always, too, good best SEO practice. What do other websites say about you? Links to from those websites to you make a difference. It not only helps your website establish credibility, but also helps those crawlers find content on your site more easily. And as we talk about finding content on your website more easily, like there's a tool called Index Now that you should consider. This is a tool that basically informs some of the search engines that something has been updated on your website. It is used by Bing, the Bing search engine, to inform Bing that something has changed on a website. Several others, I think DuckDuckGo uses it as well. Google does not acknowledge that Index Now is part of their indexing system. However, they have acknowledged they are watching it. They just don't use it. So it's still valuable. Whether or not the AI bots use Index Now, we don't really know. But again, the partnership between Microsoft and ChatGPT, for instance, suggests that they might be using some of the Bing index to help them find content. So if you're getting it quicker to Bing through an Index Now system, that might help ChatGPT, for example, find you a little bit better. And just as always, good best practices on your website is always going to be good for you, for the search engines, for the AI, and for your users. So even if none of the AI systems like you, your users are going to appreciate a fast, easy to use, easy to read, helpful content website. So what's the worst that's going to happen? And so that's how we attract pollinators to our website, always remembering that the pollinators are just the first step. We need to do all the full practice for SEO if we're going to take advantage of this. And that's where Curious Ants comes in. Curious Ants is our little product. The ant is a pollinator, as a matter of fact. I didn't think about that when I built the system. But within Curious Ants, you can find not only free documentation on how to do everything to get be found by your customers, whether through search or AI. There's also the weekly group coaching calls where we ask and answer specific questions related to things that we're struggling with or questions that we've encountered from our clients that you can participate in. And so you can visit curiousants.com and learn about that. But that's all we got to say about pollinators and websites and gardens.